When you come to the hospital or any hospital, you'll, as part of your registration, you'll be asked, no matter how many times you've been there, you'll be asked again, do you have an advance directive? Do you have a living will or a power of attorney for health care? That's required by federal law that we do that. And we're also required by federal law to provide education if that's what you desire. You certainly do not have to have these documents, as valuable as they are. They're not required by law that you have one of these. But as we're here today to say, we strongly advise it, I kind of like to think about it as following what somebody else said earlier about planning things in your life. This is a real stewardship of your life that we're dealing with here. And so to be a good steward, I think it would be helpful to have these kinds of decisions discussed in your family. Now, when people come to the hospital and we go to the room and we talk to them about what they're concerned about and what they're interested in, and we do the education just like with John presented here, one of the things that I emphasize to people is that if you've got family, if you've got a large family or small family, the people are involved in your life, if at all possible, let's get them here. Let's all do this together and let them talk with you about what you mean and what you're interested in. And then you document that and you sign it and they have a copy of it so that everybody is kind of on the same page there. One of the hard things and sad things that we have to deal with in the hospital, and it's unfortunately quite often, I'll get a call to a room and families are interested in these ideas and interested in accomplishing these purposes, but they want me to help them create an advanced care plan or even a healthcare agent form for dad or mom because they're incapacitated and they can't make decisions anymore. Well, then it's too late. It has to be done in advance for it to be done. And there's a lot of probably reasons why that happens by people watching things on television or misunderstanding the things that John talked about legal options that we have. But so I have to tell them, I'm sorry, there's nothing that can be done about that situation right now. If decisions have to be made, then you as a family or the main caregiver, if that person can be identified, the nearest next of kin, it's all on your shoulders and yours alone. And that can be very painful for people to feel like, well, I'm responsible now for the life of my loved one. And when in the best of families, it's painful. And sometimes we have to sit with them as chaplains then and help them sort out those feelings and try to tease out values and hopes and aspirations and plans. Try to help them remember phrases along the way that maybe their loved one talked about and to give them some clues because they can't read the mind of another person. All they can go with is statements, behaviors, thoughts, conversations they had many years ago. And often people will say, well, Dad said he never wanted to be living on a ventilator if it wasn't going to do any good, or something like that. And then sometimes that creates some conversation and begins to build a consensus in the family then about what Dad or Mom would or wouldn't want. The other part of that is that families don't change when they come to the bedside of a loved one. And if there's been stress and strain in that family, if there's been fussing and fighting in that family, it will probably continue at that point. And that's very hard to see as well. And that may not go away entirely with a document like this, but I think it could go a long way in removing some of the power of that strain if they could say, well, Dad said it here. This is what he wanted, and that's what we're going to do. And that would sure reduce a lot of the sorrow and the tragedy that gets added on, the sorrow and tragedy of seeing a loved one suffer, as we saw here, without any hope of recovery. So we're here, we're available to you to educate, to help you to look at options. Sometimes people come, when we do the education, people say, well, what would you do? Or what should I do? What should I put down? And we have to be very careful with that. We can't tell you that. We can explain as best we can the implications of some of those things. And not from medical terminology. Again, some of these things, if you really want to understand, you need to talk them over with your doctor. And we haven't said that much about that yet, but that would be a good place for you to go and start that kind of conversation with your primary care physician. And let them educate you about some of these medical things that you're going to be dealing with, you're going to be living with.